because that's what they like being called. They have a gold-backed digital currency. They haven't launched them yet because they don't want the war to begin. They want the attention to be on the BRICS and that gold token. They'd rather avoid the CBDC war and come out with the BRICS token that will pull the rug out from under the treasury bond. That's their plan. They don't need to go to war with newly created CBDCs when they can come up with a gold token in the BRICS and pull the rug out from the foundation of the US dollar, which is the treasury bond. There will be no demand. There will be trifling demand. There will be a flood of sales and dumping. But when we get down to the CBDC war, when it comes to that, Russia has given us a hint. They have said, we're going to be delaying our CBDC. We're working on a digital ruble. They launched it a couple of weeks ago. I got a picture of it in my July report. And the Russians announced that due to swift obstructions, if need be, they will use XRP. But they're working on the gold token at the BRICS and the Union. So Russia is ready to use the BRICS token. And on the side, they're willing to use XRP, which, by the way, is being used across the entire Persian Gulf for small transactions like utility bills and small payments like check peer-to-peer. XRP is being used in the Persian Gulf. Let that sink in. They're doing a trial. And the headquarters of that is United Arab Emirates. They are a crypto factory. They've done $200 million worth of research. They're going to be the center. So here's my theory, Sean. We're going to get the gold token, and that'll be used a lot. That will be in lieu of the US dollar and treasury bill as payment unit. We're also going to get something called I think it's called the European Payment Unit, the EPU. That's going to be maybe used for grain between Russia and Africa. But when we get down to a CBDC battle where the United States says, okay, we want import supply from country X, and country X says, well, we'd prefer that you use the Chinese CBDC, the Americans are going to say, well, we have a CBDC, it's a Fed coin. And that foreign nation supplying the U.S. imports will say, no, we don't want your Fed coin. We don't want the U.S. CBDC. And country X will say, well, we prefer the Chinese CBDC. And it goes back and forth, back and forth. And Sean, I think they're going to make a compromise with XRP. Saying XRP might be the bridge between conflicting parties with respect to CBDC differences.
Can I say something for those who don't know what XRP is? That's Ripple. And there was just a groundbreaking ruling. I say groundbreaking because Gary Gensler is a Goldman snake who's been coming hard in the paint after Binance and Coinbase and crypto in general. According to Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, they received notice from Gary Gensler saying remove all crypto from Coinbase except for Bitcoin. Bitcoin, they say, is not a security. It's property. But everything else, according to Snake Gary Gensler, is a security, even though we have Gensler on video from several years ago teaching a course at some university where he said, and I will loosely quote, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and Ethereum are not securities. There was one more to that list as well. Anyway, he's changed his tune, but now a judge just shot him down in that Ripple case, XRP, and the judge ruled that not in all cases is XRP a security. And the crypto space went ballistic because Gary Gensler is a Goldman snake, and Gary Gensler wants to target crypto because Gary Gensler is all on board with the CBDC, in my view.
I think a lot of these characters behind the scenes are buying up XRP. Here's just a logical argument. If you were involved with Uphold as a crypto coin exchange,
I am,
and you wanted to buy a bunch of XRP, you would have been limited, correct?
Yeah, actually, I buy most of my crypto, almost all of my crypto from Coinbase, and I store it all on a cold wallet storage system. But I do have Uphold because I was involved with Brave, and I'd get the Brave tokens via Uphold.
Okay, but Uphold provided an obstacle and obstruction for purchase of XRP. I've got 20 clients who said, I tried to buy $200 worth, tried to buy $1,000, tried to buy $2,500, and all I could get was 20 or 40 bucks.
Okay.
Okay, XRP was obstructed for North Americans using Uphold.
Well, and Coinbase. I'm sorry, but also Coinbase, because as soon as
Coinbase banned it.
Yep, they had to get, they delisted it because of the SEC's attack against Ripple and XRP.
Right. Okay, here's my argument. Very logical. If in the major U.S. coin exchanges, they obstructed the XRP purchase, does that not mean that the Wall Street bankers were buying it?
Well, actually,
I think,
I think that the thesis is actually logical. Now, a lot of folks do refer to XRP and have called it the bankster coin.
I don't get bogged down with arguments like that, because I see its popularity growing as a transitional caretaker device between conflicting nations who cannot agree on a payment.
Well, let me just say this too, in regards to crypto in general. I respect your views, so let's just talk about it. I don't have to be a big XRP bull, and I don't have to disagree with you either, agree or disagree. I have long maintained that crypto and blockchain can be used for good or evil. And now we see with WorldCoin, by the way, they want people to sign up for WorldCoin, the same guy behind chat, behind AI chat. He's come up with WorldCoin, so these uninformed folks in the third world and the second world and just dummies across the planet who sign up for this with their eye scans can get universal basic income with a global ID. No, thank you. Like I said, blockchain can be used for good or evil. Take a look at Bitcoin in El Salvador. El Salvador is turning itself around with Bitcoin.
I wish them luck. I think they've got a big challenge. I tend to think that the third world is probably the least trusting of WHO and UN and WorldCoin concepts. The third world is very low. Africa did not get vaccinated. Just think about that. The morons in the United States got vaccinated.
By the way, I should bite my tongue, and I'll apologize to the third world. Okay, the third world is not filled with stupid people. The third world is filled with victimized people who have been colonized and absolutely tortured by this New World Order system for much longer than I've been on this planet. And it brings me to what's happening in Niger right now. I want to share this with folks. France relies on Niger uranium for a majority of its power. The French colony of Niger has rebelled, and there has been a coup of the government. Meanwhile, Banana Joe demands the release of the Western puppet president from Niger prison. And here's what Nigerians have to say about that. We have uranium, we have diamonds, we have gold, we have oil, and we live like slaves. We can't accept it. The French must leave Nigeria. These people, I think the whole world is starting to rebel against this incredibly criminal, anti-human Rothschild system of control, the UK system of control. And by the way, the man behind the World Economic Forum and innovating to zero, and you'll own nothing and be happy, his name is King Charles, Jim.
Yeah, it's not Klaus Schwab, it's King Charles. I realize that. France is going to be, I think, the cutting edge on flipping Europe. They've got, you mentioned Niger. I hadn't heard the word Nigerian because it's so close to Nigerian from Nigeria. But they've got Niger uranium, they've got Russian grain, and they got Mali gold. And here's something you may not have thought about, but Tom Luongo and a few others have brought this to the table. The euro bond, the euro dollar rather, has been the principal item for French colonization and exploitation of European banks in Africa. They're using the euro dollar. And there's going to be a lot of obstruction, and that could be a part of why the U.S. Department of Treasury said that euro dollars are not redeemable in the United States. What is a euro dollar? It's the U.S. Treasury held in the European bank. Okay, there's a war going on, Sean, between the U.S. and the European banks, and the U.S. is trying to drive them into a derivative default before the United States. We push up interest rates, which pushes up the oil price, and Europe can't handle it like the United States can because we produce some. There's a war going on, and it's just incredible, this battle that's happening. I tell you, ooh, this is getting very, very scary. And I made a lot of forecasts 5 and 6 and 7 years ago. I called it the Eurasian trade zone, and that is essentially now the BRICS. I talked about a fake gold-backed U.S. dollar, and I call it the Scheist dollar. And you're seeing now a Fed coin, and you're hearing about a rainbow currency that just not anywhere to be seen. Maybe it's because it's valid and it's dominated by Trump designer, and Trump designers are not in power. There's a lot going on. I think there is an entire government in absentia, in exile, or maybe even operating secretly in the United States out of Cheyenne Mountain.
Yeah.
There is a tremendous amount going on here, Sean. I know you're aware of a lot of it, but I do the best I can in outlining what is going on in the United States with the threat to the dollar and the Treasury bond. And we're going to have import supply difficulties, and we're going to have a CBDC war. And I have heard, and this has come back to me about 3 or 4 different times, there are 23 individual U.S. states that have applied for BRICS membership, which means they want to use a gold system of payment. And the gold token from the BRICS seems satisfactory to them. 23 nations, guarantee they're almost all red states. We're about to have a historical upchuck, vomit, stroke. And I think something big is going to happen in September, October, November this year. I point to my vectors. I've talked about my vectors for the last 2 months in my newsletter. It's the banks, it's the bonds, U.S. government debt, which I think is already defaulted. It's the BRICS. It's the awareness of health issues and mandates. It's outing gain of function research. It's Ukraine, underground activity in Ukraine. There's a lot going on, and it all seems to be converging. Right now, we've got a lot of evidence mounting against Sleepy Joe, as you call him. And I think Joe is about to make a deal, Sean. And I don't know if this is a good way to close, but I believe that the surrounding evidence against the entire Biden family is so profound and powerful that they're going to force him into a resignation. I think it's going to come this summer. I think it's going to come this summer and fall. And there's some prophet types who have been saying this for a couple of years, and they're going to be a compromise. The Bidens are going to say, all right, we only want to be concerned about security violations and sale of documents and the treason charge, and you leave out all the other stuff with the laptop, etc. That's what I think is coming.
Well, meanwhile, they're indicting Donald J. Trump for about the 7 millionth time, and he's laughing at them. He said, this is exactly what we've been waiting for. It's divine providence, according to Steve Bannon. Yeah, because now Trump gets to retry the stolen election in federal court, in criminal federal court. And his lawyers can call and subpoena all of these jokesters who lied to the American people about the election rigging, about the Facebook meddling, about Zuck Bucks, about the whole kit and caboodle of the stolen election. And by the way, isn't that the craziest thing in the world? This is what happens in Banana Joe's Banana Republic. They indict the guy who had the election stolen from him for daring to question the election itself. That can only happen in a banana republic.
Well, I have a very different line of thinking. I agree with a lot of what you say, but I believe Biden is now under white hat control to try to turn the rest of the nation against him. And this ordering of the arrest, okay, I bring up a question. Did the Mar-a-Lago raid by the FBI result in anything favorable for the cabal? No. Did the Manhattan indictment and arrest warrant 3 months ago against Trump, did it result in anything negative for Trump? No. Okay. Nothing that they're doing in court with respect to Trump has been successful, and most has been a boomerang slamming them back in the face. Okay, I heard that there were a number of FBI officials who were forced to resign. A couple flipped and provided evidence following the Mar-a-Lago. I made a joke, not intended to be too funny, that the Manhattan judge was going to get himself arrested for taking Chinese bribes. Okay, now you got the opportunity for Trump. Okay, the opportunity is the courtroom and discovery and the opportunity to cross-examine and to call witnesses. Okay, this is a court. Now, we got to be careful about who's the judge. And remember that in the first week after the Biden funeral, the Biden inauguration, no, I really mean the funeral, everyone wore black, in January of 2021, after the Biden funeral, where the puppet took over, they fired 250 Trump-appointed judges to make sure that the fraudulent election and any other health issue brought to court would not go anywhere. Okay, this is all going to get unraveled. I think a number of judges have been captured. I think a number of Biden officials have been captured. It's resident Biden, not president. Yeah. Okay, it's getting exciting in a fun way, even though it's really quite dangerous. I focus on the finance, so I really do, and on the economics. I'll tell you something it's not confidential, but it's something that's privileged to me. That's a good word. I've got a contact at the Long Beach dock headquarters port logistics office. And he told me a year ago that the California truck emissions, it was real, but it's grotesquely exaggerated, like 20 times more important than it really was. Yeah, it was a minor point, but they blamed that for the rejection of Treasury bills at the port. So they slowed things down, blamed it on the truck emissions, when actually the military was in there with infrared checking, let's just say, a wide array of different things. I got contact unannounced, unsolicited, from the same guy in the Long Beach Port Logistics office telling me that now Long Beach between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. is a military operation. Helicopters, trucks, soldiers, all night in the middle of the night during those hours, a lot of noise and a lot of underground detonations. And he told me that, we know what gunfire is, and we know what underground explosions are, and we know what earthquakes are. And it's none of the above. This is military detonation of tunnels. And he said to me, Jim, I can only imagine. My conclusion is that we've got a U.S. military war against the Mexican drug cartel with Chinese troops, and it's underground in California. Scary.
I think there might be something to this devolution idea. Okay, so I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket. In fact, some people will criticize X22 report and others of just being hopium producers, but I see it a different way. I see our cup as half full to the extent that people are waking up to the devastating tyranny that is this cultural Marxist revolution and Banana Joe and his entire criminal administration. It's waking up those who can think in droves. In fact, income tax is trending on Twitter today, and it's probably because people don't want to pay the feds anymore, because the federal system is 100% hopelessly corrupt and weaponized against we the people. That's the good news. And that whole idea of devolution is you have to show the people how bad it is under the iron-fisted rule of these despots like Banana Joe in order to save the country and have the tribunals and have the trials. And I pray to God that that is indeed what's about to happen, because the choice is one or the other. Either we get our country back and the despots all do time or go to Gitmo and lose their heads, or
that way or that way.
Yep. Or we live under their despotic, hellish, nightmarish rule until they kill us all, which is their plan.
Sean, let me leave you with a Lulu. This is a big Lulu. That same Long Beach dock logistics guy said, I've got friends in Arizona, and they're now talking to some of the migrant crossers. They're coming across. It's an invasion. They're talking to some of them, and they're telling them, we were hired by the by the Trump element of the U.S. military, and we were hired with instructions to arrest and deport the unvetted that the Biden show brought in. They're coming in among the unvetted migrants across Texas and Arizona. They are with a mission. They are under contract. They are in plain clothes. They are Central American military volunteers working for Trump and the White Alliance to arrest and deport. And here's one example. The guy said, I have a friend in Los Angeles, and he was deported. He was my gardener, and his wife just called me up and said that he was arrested and deported back to, I think, Salvador. And the wife wanted his tools so that she could send them back to him because tools of his trade. He was a gardener. So the wife was offering testimony. She was the witness that her husband had been arrested by the White Hats to be deported, and he was an unvetted immigrant in Los Angeles. Okay, it has begun. It has begun. The removal of the unvetted migrants. And I said to this guy, well, they got a long and big task because it's at least 20, 30 million people.
It's unbelievable. Well, we live in challenging times, my friend. We live in crazy, challenging, biblical times. And look, the writing's on the wall, be it for the US dollar, but I think more succinctly for the Rockefeller Rothschild systems of control, because those tyrants relied on staying hidden behind the curtain, right? Like the Wizard of Oz analogy. And by the way, follow the yellow brick road, right? Straight back to these same criminal banking families who've controlled the fiat printing presses for a millennia. Those are the folks that are trying to save this criminal system because nobody else has a vested interest in saving this overtly criminalized system.
Notice along those lines, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds rely on central banks. They rely on support for the G7 sovereign debt and U.S. Treasury bonds, and they're losing support. And there's a rival group that they have been attacking and murdering for a generation who won't hand over their gold anymore, like Persia. I got a Persian client, and he admits to me that it's at least 20 to 30,000 tons, the reserves for Iran, the Persian gold reserves. We couldn't get it. The Rothschild didn't get it, so we created them as a rogue enemy state. Okay, this is all changing. The rug, in my opinion, is the U.S. Treasury bond. The rug is being pulled out by the BRICS. The BRICS nation, and it's not just, 6 or 20 countries like Rickard says. It's about 150 countries following the BRICS agenda. They're joining the parade by following the agenda. We might soon see Japan apply for BRICS membership.
They should.
Why? Because they're following their agenda.
Well,
they should. Treasuries and buying gold.
They should take a card from Niger's playbook and just stop being a colony of the West, because that's what Japan is and has become since World War II. And by the way, one last thought here. You mentioned that the Rothschilds couldn't get their hands on Iran's gold, but they did get their hands on the gold beneath the World Trade Center on 9/11. And remember all the bond fraud that just disappeared on 9/11? Remember what happened in Iraq? They took all the gold. Remember what happened in Libya? They stole all of Gaddafi's gold. So this has just been one big gold theft show for as long as I can remember, certainly the last 2 decades. And I think the world is really waking up. The world has really woken up, Jim, and that is the best news I can think of. Yep. As we're about to part ways, I want to thank you, number one, for your time, but number two, let's just do a screen share and show your website, golden-jackass.com, where consulting is one of the options. Of course, folks, you should sign up for the hat trick letter, but consulting is one of the options for those who need to talk with you, right?
Yes. The stock and trade is the subscription, the yellow button in the center. I post my interviews like this, and it's not real quick that I post the links to the interviews, but it's the subscriptions, it's the consulting, and my favorite is the sponsor. Yeah, I actually had someone a few days ago, a surprise, very nice lady in Central States, a successful business lady. And these are very nice people. A lot of them are Christians, but I like to think of them as Christians soldiers, truth warriors, and energy. No, what do you call it? Oh, that's something else. Anyway, I don't want to be too clever. There are a lot of people who are defending the truth. They're defending the attack. This is a satanic assault on our planet. And we need God's support. And I'm a Christian, and I give a lot of thanks to Jesus and all of his agents. Call them angels if you want, but I call them agents. Like this lady a few days ago would hit the sponsor button. I've had a number of people hit the sponsor button in the last month, but I'm under constant assault because, as my colleagues say, you're directly over the target, Jim, and you're shining light on a lot of evil and a lot of corruption. Yep, I am. So sign up for the newsletter. That's the best way. And your supporters, Sean, are always there following a show. You have a big presence and a big shadow, and I thank you for that.
Well, thank you for saying that. I've always said that my audience is among, in my opinion, the most generous and supportive audiences out there. I know a lot of folks who have channels say that, but it's true with mine. I've had authors on time and time again who will say, look, I've been on Alex Jones. I've been on Coast to Coast. I've been on other shows. I always sell the most books when I'm on your show because your audience is so engaged. So for that, I do thank the audience. And by the way, some of those authors include James Perloff. Who else? I have the book sitting right here. Marty Leeds, Brad Olson, E. Michael Jones, and of course, Donald Jeffries. I haven't yet had on Edward Dowd, whose book is sitting in my hands, Cause Unknown, The Epidemic of Sudden Deaths in 21 and 22.
Excellent.
Pfizer can't figure it out to this day, Jim. They just can't figure out what's causing the myocarditis.
Well, I think their VPs are on the run. I think they're in hiding. I think they've employed some clones, and I think they sold a lot of their stock to BlackRock.
Yeah, and I think they sold their souls. Anybody who's still working for Pfizer, carrying the water for this criminal, corrupt corporation whose CEO, Albert Bourla, ought to be in federal prison right now for crimes against humanity and conspiracy to commit murder. Anybody who's carrying the water for that company still, it's clear to all of us, folks, you've sold your soul. So if there's no justice in this world, wait till what's coming for you in the next one, because you all are mercenaries from hell.
Sean, I think we're going to get alternative justice. They're going to be hunted down and taken out by white hat troops like Ezra. Let's just say Ezra. People know who that is who've been following his career. They're going to be hunted down. They're going to employ doubles and clones. They sold their stock. Of course, they sold their soul. I don't necessarily think that we're going to get wrongful death lawsuit claims and like $1 trillion fund. They're going to request that Big Pharma a pass and claim innocence and claim that it was an unfortunate outcome that they didn't expect. And that whole debate I welcome, because that's when you're going to get evidence for the falsified clinical trials and bring out the after effects, the VAERS database. I lost my college roommate, Bruce, and his widow is not awakening. She's happy that she got vaccinated, and I told her that she's aligned with Satanists, narco traffickers, and Marxists, and she's on the wrong team, so I want no further contact.
Well, we should pray for her and pray for all of those who have been deluded by this. Truly, you got it right. It's a satanic system, and the satanic delusion is deep. It runs very deep for many. You know, I said 70% of those who can't think. That sort of is the consensus now, guys, that 70% of folks get their information via consensus, meaning they don't have the ability to critically think. They're like sheep. Imagine a herd of sheep. Every now and then one pops its head up to see what all the other sheep are doing, and that to them is their truth, because they're not equipped to critically think. That's why you can't wake them up. Just like that gal you were just speaking of, you can't wake her up, Jim. She's got to dig deep inside and pray and want to wake up and do the due diligence. And I'm sorry, it's a difficult, painful journey. And frankly, once you're awake, it doesn't get any easier. It's a difficult, painful journey when you know the truth.
Sean, I believe that those who took that leap and harmed themselves and got infected and altered, a lot of them will never come back because there will be a cognitive degradation, which means they will lose their ability to think and to assemble information in order to conclude on what they're looking at. I call that the advent, and it's coming at the end of this year and the beginning of next year. I call it the zombie chapter. It is coming.
Yep.